Hey, hey, hey! Welcome to Reliable Source. I'm Jonelle.
And I'm Kirsty, and we're both journalists in Europe's biggest newsroom, BBC News. And every week, we come here to talk to you about the stories we've been covering for the BBC News TikTok account and just the stories we're most obsessed with.
So, is your water bottle dirtier than a toilet? We put on our lab coats to find out. Melvin.
Hello.
You were the final water bottle that we were able to secure.
Really?
You were the last person
Okay.
that we took. How does that feel for you? Do you feel good about that?
I only feel good if it's a clean bottle.
Right. And Sharon Gaffka, who was on Love Island, talks about her experience with baby loss. And you can get a new certificate if you've experienced it.
I think it's really hard when you're trying to process and go through like the grieving process of what happened to kind of say like, oh, it didn't really happen because you kind of have no proof of it. Right. It was something that's really, really difficult.
This is a Reliable Source.
You're probably thinking, why are we dressed like this? It's because we are serious scientific journalists. And one thing that we've been up to this week is finding out how dirty people's water bottles are and how often you should wash them. And it basically came because, you know, if you are a Reliable Source listener, you would have known that we've spoken about the Stanley Cup phenomenon. That went crazy. So I've been looking at Stanley Cups, and then this one popped up on my feed, and it was this woman who was cleaning it, and she noticed it had like all this mold and algae, and she was like, you know, I rinse this out every day, and she was talking about how she cleans her water bottle, but she just doesn't really clean it properly, and people don't really know. And if they aren't cleaning their water bottle, is it dangerous?
Well, because we've spoken before about how water bottles are emotional support for people. People don't want to give them up. They want to have them by their side every day. But if you're having it by your side every day, are you washing it?
I wash mine every single time I use it, but most people don't, according to the internet and according to 10 random bottles that me and you went on.
Yeah, this is the thing that I just love about this job. It's like, we were talking about this and we were like, God, I wonder how often you're supposed to wash it. And then we were like, let's just find out.
Yeah.
So we ran around the BBC building.
We were on a scavenger hunt.
We were on a scavenger hunt for reusable water bottles, and we collected them all. And we got in contact with King's College London, and we were like, babes, can you test these for us?
And we compared them to pub toilets. So is our water bottles really that disgusting if we're not washing them at all, or only washing them once a week with a bit of water? And yeah, we did ask people when we took their water bottles what their routine was, what their washing routine was with their water bottle, where did they take them, and here's what some of them said.
Probably been like over a month.
Every few weeks, but yeah.
I try and wash it once a week.
Not as often as I should probably. It kind of just sits in the bag with squash inside it.
Can I get my hands on it and take it to the lab?
You can, I'm scared, but yeah, okay. It does need a wash.
All right, it's better to be informed.
How often do you use that water bottle?
Every day.
Every day. And then how often do you clean it?
Every day.
Talk me through your cleaning process though, like how.
I just rinse it. There's no time.
With more water? Is there any soap in there?
There's no soap.
No soap?
I don't want it to be soapy. Is that bad?
No,
we'll find out.
Listen. So when we were in the lab, we got a chance to swab these bottles.
Yeah.
And we had to like use this thing. I can't remember what
it's called. This thing. I love being a woman in STEM.
Turn down the Wi-Fi. Woman in STEM. Guys, we were really determined to get the answers for you, because this is something that people use all the time. Is it dirty? Are you guys getting sick because of your water bottles? And then we left that there for 3 days. Popped back.
Put the lab coats back on.
Back on, glasses back on. And then we heard from Josh, the PhD student, who specialises in microbes. Here's what he had to say. So it's been 3 days and we are back in the lab. We're going to ask Josh all about what he's been up to. There's been some changes around here. There are some Petri dishes all lined up.
Let's see how much germs we've got.
The water bottles have approximately 20.1 million bacterial cells per mil.
So the average one that we brought you in has 20.1 billion.
Yeah.
Is that more than you expected, or?
That's about what I expected.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the toilet has just 600.
The toilet's got less.
The toilet's got less.
The toilet's got less bacteria. Yeah, it's a bit insane what he just said. Like, actually shocked me.
Yeah.
There's so much more bacteria on your water bottle than a dirty public toilet in a pub.
Yeah.
In central London.
In central London, like, people were using that toilet all the time.
Yeah.
But as he said, these pubs in central London, there's a cleaning schedule. Like, that's getting cleaned often.
With bleach?
Yeah, with bleach. And like, organisations have responsibility to clean their toilets. So really, it sounds like, what the hell? How has my water bottle got more microbes than a toilet? And to be clear, the water bottles had an average, so of the 10 water bottles we took to Joshua, they had an average of 20.1 million alive and active microorganisms per milliliter, and the toilet had 650. So 650 compared to 20.1 million is so many. I was shocked. We were in that clip, we were both like, what? Like, we were shocked.
But the thing is, let's not scare everyone because they don't wash their water bottles nearly enough. But the bacteria that's in the toilets are more dangerous.
Yeah. But the water bottles, Joshua was explaining to us that most of the bacteria that he found that looks really gross on those agar plates that we went and saw, he said most of it comes from our mouth. And so it's not stuff that's really, really harmful. It can't, like, it probably won't cause disease. But it still shouldn't be growing in your water bottle that much. So he said you have to wash it once a day with soap, scrub the rim, and then once a week, he said if it's dishwashable, put it in the dishwasher.
Yeah.
So we've learned a lot. And actually, if we think about all the people we went round to when we were running on our little scavenger hunt, I don't think a single one of them said that they washed it every day with soap.
Melvin.
Hello.
You were the final water bottle that we were able to secure.
Really?
You were the last person
Okay.
that we took. How does that feel for you? Do you feel good about that?
I only feel good if it's a clean bottle.
Right. So what we decided to do was to compare our results with samples that were taken from a toilet to kind of see.
From a toilet?
Yeah. So we looked at...
You compared my bottle to a toilet?
Yeah, so 5 samples.
Right.
We got from London toilets, from pubs. Which one had the most bacteria?
Don't say
Your water bottle had more bacteria than a toilet.
Than a toilet?
Yes. Yes.
But what?
Yes.
Am I not cleaning it properly? Because I rinse it out.
No.
So
wait, there's an important disclaimer first.
Okay.
It had way more bacteria than the toilet.
Yeah.
But it's not as harmful as the bacteria that was found on the toilet.
Yes, so there was 20.1 million species of bacteria in your toilet. Yeah. And not in your water bottle. 20.1 million.
Okay.
But the toilet
had
650.
Okay.
650 in the toilet. But it's dangerous
bacteria
in the toilet.
Okay.
And they are really gross. We've got some pictures we're going to put on the screen right now. We've got some pictures. They are quite odd looking, nasty, bits of nasty.
So how should I be cleaning my bottle?
So remind us, you said you cleaned your water bottle.
I just rinse it in the morning, but I put the same thing in
You
it.
put peppermint tea.
It's just tea all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, but you would sometimes put water in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
This is a problem. This
Why
is
is
a real
water a
problem, Melvin,
problem?
because if you're putting in peppermint tea
Yeah.
and then you're rinsing it out and then you're putting in water, the peppermint tea is going to, not the tea itself, but that liquid is going to be stuck to little parts of the water bottle. And if you're just rinsing it with water, it's not going to rinse it off. You have to scrub it. You have to really, it forms this little gluey kind of thing, and you have to use a brush and some soap to actually scrub that off.
So
if you then put water in it, that's when the bacteria really starts
The
growing.
only reason I don't use soap is because I'm in a rush in the morning. And so I just assume that if I put soap in there, it's just going to end up being soapy tea.
I think you need to set your alarm a little bit earlier in the morning so you've got a bit more time to really get that soap going.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, this is important news that we've done.
You've changed my life. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
If you're looking for a new podcast obsession, we think you might like Murder They Wrote with Laura Whitmore and Ian Sterling.
Listen to some of the world's most jaw-dropping crime stories on BBC Sounds. Now, where were we?
So last Thursday, the government introduced this voluntary application where you can apply for a baby loss certificate. And that's if you've lost your baby before 24 weeks of pregnancy.
Yeah, this is in England. So you can already get a certificate to recognise the fact that you've miscarried or lost your baby after 24 weeks. But there was nothing for anyone who lost their baby before 24 weeks. You just move on with your life and carry on. So it's really interesting. And it got so much positive reaction of people saying, thank God, they wanted this recognition of the fact that they'd gone through something really traumatic, but kind of had nothing to show for it. So we looked at the figures of how many people have already applied. We're recording this on Tuesday. It was only announced last Thursday. And already in England, 30,000 people have applied for one of these certificates. So that kind of shows how much of a want there was from people to actually have something to mark what happened to them.
Sharon Gaffka, who was on Love Island, she now campaigns. She's campaigned on a lot of women's issues, on political participation. She actually came out on social media and spoke about her situation and what baby loss certificates means to her on her TikTok.
You or someone you know has ever experienced a form of baby loss, whether that comes in miscarriage or ectopic pregnancy, you'll know or have witnessed how excruciatingly emotionally and mentally and physically traumatic it can be for a person. For me, I feel like it would have helped just to have it formally recognised, and that, you know, the grief that I was feeling and experiencing was okay and normal.
It's nice to meet you. You to meet again.
Yeah, I'm Jonelle.
I'm Kirsty.
Nice to meet you.
So we just wanted to kind of talk to you about baby loss certificates and like why are they important?
Yeah, I think so they've always been you can always apply for a baby loss certificate post 24 weeks, but it was more for people that are experiencing baby loss pre 24 weeks. You know, for me it was not necessarily the same, but with some people they actually had to, like, you know, give birth still and have a funeral and have like ashes of their baby, but then not to have any certificate or like documentation to say that, you know, that baby actually did exist. I think it's really hard when you're trying to process and go through like the grieving process of what happened to kind of say like, oh, it didn't really happen, because you kind of have no proof of it. Right. Was something that's really, really difficult. And it's even more confusing for me because I didn't really want to be pregnant. I didn't want to have a baby, and like going through the grieving process when you don't want to be pregnant is even more confusing than when you do, because people kind of feel like, well, do you have anything to grieve, because you didn't really want it anyway, so you should be happy rather than sad. So now trying to like still go through the grieving process, because I was more worried about what people would think as opposed to actually going, like, looking after myself.
So do you feel like you were worried about people's reactions to what was happening to you rather than actually processing it?
Yeah, because I was going through a weird stage. Obviously, you know, when you leave Love Island, everyone's so interested in your life and like your love life, because everyone believes that they have access to it even if you don't leave the show with somebody. And, you know, I was seeing somebody very, very privately, and it was like a very private relationship and nobody knew about it. So is that concern like, oh, are people going to judge me because they didn't think I was in a relationship? So did I become pregnant and promiscuous? And because I was talking about spiking and other things, I was already a target for certain types of men online. So am I just giving them more ammunition? So and like tabloids, are tabloids going to write about this? Am I going to get negative comments, negative spin? Are people going to blame me? Like, is it something that I did to cause the baby loss, the miscarriage? So I was more focused, like hyperfixated on that aspect of it, as opposed to like, you know, processing my emotional needs, processing the emotional needs of the person that I shared this experience with, and coming to terms with what had happened. I was focusing on the wrong thing. So I guess when it got to like what would have been the 1 year mark, like the first birthday of said baby, it was like, now is the time for me to start processing it. Right. And then then obviously people started talking to me about it, and I was like, oh my god, like people I knew and I've known for ages have suffered with baby loss and miscarriage and then never spoke about it, and I'm not the only one. And to not even be able to get it formally recognised was just weird. Like, it was kind of like in the hospital, you've miscarried, and then go home and just wait it out, basically.
What is it like for someone who's never experienced it? It sounds like really difficult to go through something where it's almost like nothing. It's like nothing. There's nothing to speak about. You can't speak about this person you knew who died. It's like almost what would have been. So like, what does that feel like for someone who's never experienced it?
I think it's confusing, and I think everyone I've spoken to says it's kind of confusing, because people automatically, like when you lose a grandparent, for example, especially if they die in old age, you know, you've experienced a life with them, you've got memories of them, whereas your only memory really of your baby is the positive pregnancy test. So they kind of, a lot of the time, if people don't experience it or don't understand or lack empathy, they kind of just think, well, you know, how have you been able to form an attachment? And I actually think it's more prevalent for the male partner or the person not carrying the pregnancy physically, because then they definitely don't have the memory. Like, I have the memory of taking the pregnancy test, like my body went through the process, whereas the other person didn't. So do they have any right to be upset or grieve? And if they're not given that space or like have people around you to talk about it, they've also experienced it, it just feels like you're on your own. and that nobody understands what you're going through, and it kind of makes you wonder, like, I felt like, am I being hysterical? Am I upset over something that I shouldn't be upset about? But like, nobody should be able to tell you how you feel about something. It's your experience, and only you can decide how it makes you feel.
Can you kind of like talk us through kind of the story and kind of like take us along with you?
Basically, I started to miscarry at home.
Oh no.
So I was on my own. I was at home, and my parents are very traditional, like married before children, that type of stuff. So it's not something, and like, my mum comes from very religious backgrounds. This is not something that I could ever bring up to them. So I had to kind of just deal with it on my own. And luckily, like, my brother's a healthcare professional, so I was able to talk to him about it. But by the time I managed to get an appointment to the hospital, like, it's too late.
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't anything they could do about it anyway. Like, the outcome couldn't have changed.
And you said that, like previously you said that you kind of pushed all of like the emotions till later on.
Yeah.
When did you realise that it just enough was enough?
I think it was more when it would have been my baby's first birthday that I was like, because I actually didn't notice. I didn't think about it. I was just living life as normal. And then I must have put something in my calendar at one point when I was going through baby loss, and when seeing that notification, just like, it felt like I was being hit by a train. And I was like, wow, okay, like, I'm feeling all these things that I didn't actually think I would feel. And I felt really sad. And it's hard. It's also a hard conversation to talk about with your friends if you're at different stages of life. Like, quite a lot of my friends are actively trying for children or were at the time, and like, some were having difficulties. So you don't want to upset other people that are experiencing other things as well. So it was just, that was kind of like, I need to start talking about it. And like, not having proof of any kind. Proof is a weird word, but like, not to have something. Yeah.
It's kind of also like, in a weird way, a bit like a doctor's note. You're expected, if you are going to have to like take extra time out and expect it to be recognised in an official way, it's kind of like a note to say, by the way, this is what I'm like, this is by the way, just the by the way, this is what I'm kind of going through. Or sometimes even if it's like less obvious, like, it doesn't have to like tell you exactly what's happening, but it's like, by the way, this is what I'm doing right now, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I kind of thought, like, when I saw that it was allowed, like, that they'd allowed it for people that were experiencing baby loss under 24 weeks, I was like, oh, maybe this would be like the final piece of closure that I need. Like, it's finally being recognised. And like, that's all I thought of it, as it being. But to hear people, like other people messaging me saying that, they had to have a funeral for their baby, and like, they have ashes and they've had jewellery made, but they don't have a form of documentation. It's kind of like reading a book, getting to the last chapter and then not finishing it. And like, when it's something that carries emotional, mental baggage, you're literally walking around with it every single day of your life, and you're never going to close that chapter off. And I can't even begin to imagine what it's like for those people, because it was tough for me, and for those people, I'm going to imagine it's even worse.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming to talk to us. It's been really, really interesting. So thanks for sharing your story and your thoughts.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So if anyone that's listening has been through anything similar and you're struggling with it, you can head to bbc.co.uk/action line. There's loads of redirection to different services there that might be able to help you. Thank you for listening to Reliable Source. As always, we'll be back next week with even more news, gossip, drama, everything you need to know.
We've got a new episode every Thursday, so make sure you tap subscribe or follow so you never miss an episode.
And that's wherever you're listening. We're on BBC Sounds YouTube, where you can watch the full episode. Listen on BBC Sounds or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Wherever you get your podcasts, we'll be there.
Yeah, we're everywhere and you don't want to miss it. So for now, make sure you get your news from a reliable source. Bye.